Hello, beautiful souls. It's a beautiful day in the natural world. My name is Farah, and I like to make videos about how nature shows us who we truly are through the lens of my own human experience. So today we're talking about waiting as allowing life to make its next move. So I wonder if you've ever had the experience of putting yourself out there in some way. So it might be that you've applied for a job, or you've created something new that you're putting out into the world, or you have put your heart out there in a relationship, either through a phone call or a message or an email, something that you've sort of made your move. And then you're sitting in the place of what can sometimes feel like waiting. In my own experience, I have made moves that have sometimes felt very easeful. I sort of made the move, it felt really aligned, really inspired, and whatever the response or outcome was going to be, I didn't have any sense of urgency or any sort of feeling of waiting. Other times, I have made the move, and almost almost immediately after making the move, and I'm talking like, within an hour, I'm like, oh, I wonder if I've gotten a response for this thing yet, whether it's a job or a connection, anything that we are in relationship with. And when I find myself in these moments where I'm showing up in a relationship, making my move, and then noticing a sense of urgency in my body that often flows through the heart and the mind as sort of worried thoughts or urgent feeling, whenever I notice that experience, I ask myself, what's up? Why is it that this move in this relationship is carrying this charge, this energy? And so often, if not always, there is some story connected to some experience in my body or in the mind or in the heart. And sometimes that story is linked to a pain that needed to be processed. And other times it is linked to a habit of sort of pain that had already been processed, but that something inside me that was experiencing that urgency was so used to experiencing urgency when making a move in the context of a specific relationship, that was sort of like an automatic go-to response when such a move was made, whatever that may be, either for a job or in relationship with a person or a project or even a hobby, a new hobby. And I'm so grateful to ask that question because it really opens me up to the whole truth of the experience, of the wholeness of what's actually happening. Because it's rarely just about that urgent feeling. It's rarely just about those worried thoughts. It's really that charge is rarely on its own. And when I come out here into the natural world, something very specific struck me today. I was looking at the leaves and just how beautiful they are, just so bloomed and flourishing and bright and green. There's just a lusciousness to them. And they were still. And I was looking at them in their stillness. And then suddenly the wind blew through the leaves and they started to dance. And they were dancing so beautifully with a sort of, rhythmic, gentle movement, all of them in unison. And in that moment, I saw that the leaves had shown up. They have flourished and blossomed and really expressed themselves, right? They've bloomed. And then it was time for life to make its move, or to make them move. And that's when the wind came in. And that's when it became a dance. That's when it actually became a relationship between the wind and the leaves. The only way that that became a dance at all was in that period of allowing the wind to make its move. And when I sort of experienced that relationship, it just reminded me of how important that space between making our move and allowing life to make its move really is. Beyond a period of waiting, it's actually just the natural relationship of the dance. It's the only way for the dance to happen, for any dance to happen, if you sort of allow the other party, the co-creator, right, of the experience to make its next move. And it might be whoever, you applied to the job for, or the person you're in relationship with, or the hobby or the creative project that you've put out into the world. That period of time, right after you've bloomed, right after you've blossomed, right after we've shown up in our own flourishing expression, that period right after is the most beautiful invitation for life to make its next move. And can you imagine if we didn't sit there, if we didn't sit in that allowing, and we actually just kept sort of, I could just say incessantly blooming, maybe just on our own, continuing to call the job place, or to check in the relationship, or to check in on the response for your creative project, or to not have any sort of maybe rest or reflection in the hobby. That period, without that period, there would be no space for the dance. There would be no space for the relationship. And so I'm so grateful to the natural world for showing me that wisdom, for reflecting it back to me in this really just lovely, light and beautiful way. And I can really feel that in my body when I'm out here. I can feel the wind. I can feel the flow, I can see it moving through the trees. And then I get to go back into my day-to-day modern life. And whenever I find myself in these moments, and I ask myself that question, sort of, what's up? What is this urgency? What are these thoughts? What is this feeling in the body? And I get to meet whatever it might be, right? Unconscious pain that was there that needed to be processed, or a habit. And that process of meeting that experience really honestly, I get to be held in that process by the wisdom of life itself, by the trust and the knowing that it truly is in that space where the relationship evolves, where the relationship happens, where the relationship grows, where the relationship is a relationship and not just sort of one entity. And that's a really nourishing and supportive truth. And I can still feel the things that might need to be felt. Often those felt experiences in the body, at least in my own experience, have been connected to moments like that where that truth of the relationship wasn't necessarily known or experienced at the moment that that pain or that habit was taken on. And so to be held in nature's wisdom while processing, our unconscious stuff, bringing it into our conscious awareness and being so nourished in the truth, that is a soothing and honest and uplifting experience that doesn't deny the wholeness of it all. And so now I get to see moments that feel like waiting as allowing life to make its next move. So I wish this for you. I wish for this wisdom of the natural world to hold you when you find yourself in moments that feel urgent, that feel like waiting for something that maybe touches your heart in a really tender way because of your own human experience. I wish for you to be held in nature's wisdom.